applications. Who's afraid of the pen tool? Raise your hand. I meet tons of customers who just shy away from a Bezier pen tool. And we have it in Illustrator, in Photoshop, in After Effects, and InDesign. So I want to show you a couple of subtle differences within the applications, how to move them from different applications. But the pen tool, you shouldn't be afraid of the pen tool because it is a fantastic tool and it is not that hard to use. I also want to show you that moving stuff between Illustrator and other applications requires this old feature we added years ago called AICB, Adobe Illustrator on the clipboard, which is really complex PostScript information captured in the clipboard. Bottom line is you end up with a perfect vector path in these other applications. It's not that difficult. All right, let's go in and just look at some rudimentary techniques inside here. So the one great thing about working with the pen tool is that all of these extra pen commands can be created just by using this pen tool right here. So you don't have to constantly keep going back and forth and getting that and clicking on that. Just use the same command. The other thing that I'm going to switch is inside here, we've got a direct selection tool and a direct select group. I'm just going to leave it on what a lot of people will call the white arrow. And if I grab my pen tool and then press my command key on the Mac, Control on Windows, you can see it gives me that tool. Now, by default, it's the Move tool. And the Move tool selects all of the points and moves the whole thing. But there's a good chance that sometimes when you're deep inside editing a path, you quickly just need to select a point or a couple of points and move them. If you have the regular Move tool, it selects all the point. Having the white arrow allows you just to select those little pieces inside there. So I always get that before I go into the pen tool. Now it's loaded on my command key. So I have the Create a Point tool. So when I click and click and click, I'm creating a point. So that's one tool. Click and drag, and I'm creating a smooth point. And if I click and drag and add the Option key on Mac, Alt on Windows, I can turn a corner. So you can see I'm pulling on the Bezier handle and drawing out from there. So the shape I'm drawing is not that specific, but the way that I'm drawing it is very important. So let me just zoom in on this, and you'll see when I finish this up, there's a tiny little circle that shows up. This is telling me now that I'm about to create a closed path. Anytime you're going to fill something, you have to have a closed path. You will create an enormous amount of problems down the road if you think you closed the path and you didn't. So I'll click, and now my path is closed. Okay, so let's go back and look at the tools. We have the pen tool. We have the Convert Anchor Point, Add and Delete. Remember I said you don't need those, you have them all with this tool. So watch this. This is a point that's already there. Watch what happens when I mouse over. It changes to a minus point. So I'll click, it deletes the point. Go back over that, turns to a plus, click Add. So there's three tools in one that you don't have to keep going to get. Now I said all of them were in there with a modifier key. When I mouse over and hold the Option key on Mac, Alt on Windows, I can now convert a point. So when I pull that out, I'm pulling the handle out. When I click on it again, I make it into a corner point. So you can easily start to turn these to corner points. If I click and drag this out and then hold the Option key after the fact, so I do have to let go and then go back and click again and hold the Option key, then I can now drag this out. To straighten this out, you have to go back and make that a corner point and then make that a smooth point. So that might sound like a jumble of information, but the bottom line is I grab the pen tool, I grab the white arrow tool, and I am away and working. Okay, another great thing that I like working with vector paths in Illustrator, I'm just going to grab a simple shape here, is when I drag this out, here I'm drawing a rectangle. If I want to draw a rectangle, but the rectangle is the right size, but it's in the wrong position, I still have my hand on the mouse. If I push the space bar, I can move this around and resize this. So this is great if you're trying to match a shape that's already on the page. And that makes it easy. Okay, delete that. Remember I mentioned in Preferences, it's in the Illustrator menu on the Mac and in the Edit menu on Windows, File Handling, and Clipboard. This is the default setting. copy as Adobe Illustrator on the clipboard. So this is really the highest level of control that you want. Again, the default within Adobe applications, this is what they expect. Now, one application I'm not going to show here is InDesign, but guess what? You just saw InDesign. Every single thing I showed you in Illustrator is mirrored in InDesign. It's a fantastic drawing tool. It will accept all of these paths copied and pasted directly. And once it's an object that's pasted in InDesign, it's an InDesign object. So I don't really need to show you those things. Oh yeah, the one thing I do want to make sure you know is that when we're drawing a path, just like with that rectangle tool, I haven't let go of my mouse. That's the point. If I push down the space bar, I can change that point while I'm still drawing it. And this is great if you're trying to redraw logos, which I did for years back in the 90s. You get a photograph, you have to zoom in, you have to find all these contours and draw around it. Okay, so let's finish up our path here and let's copy this. Got the selection tool, select the whole thing, edit, copy. So it's now used AICB, it's in the clipboard. So if we jump over to Photoshop and I paste, Photoshop actually has 4 options for pasting in these paths. The first one is a shape layer. When I choose this and pick a shape layer, it's a shape layer. Where did the vector path go? It's right over there. If I go and grab some of the tools like the white arrow tool, and click inside here, I can still edit this. And a shape layer in Photoshop is basically a vector shape with a single color stuck inside. Now remember, we can also have vector masks inside Photoshop, so this shape could be a mask. So let me delete that one, paste again. As a regular path, and this just shows up, click OK, in our paths inside here. A little warning about whenever you see an italic when it says work path, you learned this a long time ago. Double click and at least name it or hit OK. If you don't do that, you could lose your path. The italic name means it's just sitting there waiting for you to do something. If you think it's going to be there, next time you open this image, it won't. It will be deleted. So make sure you save that. OK, so that's another way to get it in here. Paste again. Pixels, of course, is just going to paste it in as pixels. Remember, this was not a filled color. This was a black stroke drawn in Illustrator. So now we have a single layer here, which is actually white fill, black stroke from Illustrator. And then the last one, a smart object, click OK. This comes in as a smart object that's linked to the original Illustrator file. This is pretty powerful. If this was a logo or something that I wanted to bring in here and print and work with high quality, this is a great choice because I can scale it up, scale it down, work with it, print it, and it's going to be perfect. But I don't want to work with those. I want to show you the same tools inside here that we were just working with Illustrator. Again, click and hold, pen. We've got a freeform pen tool, which is an additional thing. We've got the same kind of tools in Illustrator, but we're concentrating on these 4. So again, there's my pen tool. As I start to draw this around, click, hey, there's the space bar. Guess what? Doesn't work. Used to work. We're using CS 5.5 applications in here, and Illustrator and Photoshop actually stayed at CS 5.1. So this is a CS 5 feature. That space bar does not work in Photoshop. I can close that path. I can have that path selected, and up here you have to make sure the automatically add and delete points is turned on, and then we can add our points, delete our points. Option or Alt on Windows, click to change to a corner point, click to drag that out. So all of those same kind of commands. There's also a white arrow tool hidden inside here, so it's normally the path selection tool. So again, this is the reason why I don't use that. I'll hold my command key down and it's going to grab that one normally. And that selects all the points. That's not what I want. I want the other arrow tool, which will allow me to select just a few points and move them around. So almost the same as Illustrator. It's missing the spacebar unlock for dragging the points, but that spacebar unlock position, which is what I'm calling it, does work for things like shapes and rectangles. So that is the same. All right. Now let's talk about the odd one of the bunch, and that's After Effects. If you came from an After Effects world, you're probably used to the pen tool. If you come from Illustrator into After Effects, you want to take a hammer and smack yourself in the head sometimes. It's a fantastic tool. It's accurate. You can do amazing rotoscoping with it, but it's kind of particular on the way that it makes selections. So I happen to be making a shape here instead of a path, but you get the idea. So the same ideas are in place. Let me just create another solid just so we can draw a path white on white. Click and drag. Oh, look, I'm holding the space bar down and it allows me to move that. So this is similar to what Illustrator has. Holding the Option key or Alt on Windows, I can change its location, lock that path. We do have a different indicator in After Effects, and that's the first vertex right here. It always has a larger setting, and anytime you want, you can select something and go to the mask, and you can set your first vertex as something different. It only helps with things like animating on a path when you have to have something set at a specific vertex. Other than that, it's not that interesting when you're drawing. You can see when I mouse over, I can click to add a point, I can minus a point. The part where After Effects can be a little bit confusing is when you're trying to select the whole thing or just one point. And you know, I'm using my Command key, I'm clicking outside of it, and of course my path disappears. It's still here, it's down inside here, so I can always click on my mask. And I am you know, drawing white on white just so you can see the path. But watch what happens when you're trying to grab a point inside here. You know, sometimes it can be a little tricky to grab that point. So if I'm trying to drag 1 point or 2 points inside here, you know, I'm grabbing that. If I want to click all of them and move them, I'm holding the Command key and the Option key, clicking on them, letting go, making sure I've got just the Move tool and selecting it. There's a few things to get straight, and you know, that will maybe mess you up, but they definitely are worth checking out. So the last thing, remember I did AICB, Adobe Illustrator on the clipboard. Let's jump back to Illustrator and let's just grab something a little bit more interesting than that. Let's grab our wonderful star tool, and the star tool is kind of cool. You can hold down the Command key and change this, and we've got our star. Edit, copy, back to After Effects, and if I just paste this in here, it's going to paste this in as a mask if you initially have a mask. So After Effects wants to know whether you're working with a shape or a mask. So let me just delete this, create a new solid, which is basically the way we work. If I paste this in, it won't always paste correctly as a mask. So one tip is to grab one of these tools, make sure that the layer is selected, and it doesn't matter which tool, you just draw a shape, you can see a mask is made, and then you paste inside there. It's a way to say, hey, activate the mask, After Effects, and get ready because the mask is selected. Whatever's coming in, AICB, will replace that with your new shape. So it's a great way to work. So I hope that gives you an idea of the pen tools in each one of the applications. They're really similar, really powerful, and they talk well together.